Hey, Ms. Bahak here, and in this video, I'm really excited to take you through an actual podcast launch. It's happening in real time, and I figured I'd take you behind the scenes with me to show you my process. I've been working on prepping all of the materials just to show you that a lot of the work is done before you actually submit your stuff to your hosting provider and get it on Apple, Spotify, Google. It takes weeks sometimes to actually get this stuff recorded. I'm going to start by showing you how I organize my information within Google Drive, and then I'm also going to show you how you are going to choose a hosting provider, which is going to then broadcast your show to all of the places that people typically listen to podcasts. So by the end, if you have some of your files ready, if you have your audio file and or video file, I'm going to cover the steps that it actually takes to get your show and your ideas out into the world. Okay, let's dive in here. I'm in my Google Drive and I have a folder dedicated to this show. I'm going to go into episode 1, and this is like my ideal breakdown. As you can see, I like to have the audio file, which is going to go directly into Buzzsprout, and then I have an edited video file that is ready for YouTube, and then you're going to see I have a Google Doc that contains the transcription, which is ready to be uploaded as a blog post. There are show notes, which is a little bit different. This is actually going to be quotes and links and the title of the podcast. As you can see, there are personalized links here. So I have trackable links that I create for both myself and my co-host Blake. I have a document set up there that's pretty consistent in the description from episode to episode. And then you'll see that there is a folder for landscape clips, and this is optimized for YouTube. So when we click through here, you'll see that anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes is the range of the clip that I'm going to be getting ready for YouTube. And then I have portrait clips. These already have the captions and progress bars and things like that kind of built in. As you can see in this folder for reels and really portrait clips for like TikTok and shorts and honestly any other platform that is going to be vertical format in the future. I design these clips with it being evergreen and not just something that's like hot when I first launch the show. Of course, it's nice to push the episode when you first release it, but you want to create some of these clips so that okay, even a couple weeks later, you're excited to share some of these moments, because chances are, especially when your show is new, not everybody is listening to the full episode. And it's just something you gotta work around in the beginning by getting really good at clips. When you're launching a show, you wanna make sure that you launch with 3, because you wanna give people more pieces of content to consume. Gives people an opportunity to preview your vibe, more of your content, different topics that you might be covering. Then you might wait 4 days, 7 days, and then release your next episode after that. So having all of these assets ready from episode 1 to 3, including all the clips and the show notes and the transcript, makes it so much easier when it's time for you to actually go and publish. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is basically get my hosting software set up. I like to use Buzzsprout. I've been a big user of Libsyn in the past, and I personally like Buzzsprout a little bit better. And we both get $20 gift cards from Amazon if you click the link in the description below. So the step that I completed before I even am about to set up the Buzzsprout account is to create a Gmail or an email that's dedicated to your podcast. You can hit get started for free, and then basically just go ahead and fill out your information. All right, once you've filled out your information, you're gonna hit create my podcast. Don't look, I'm gonna fill out my password. So go ahead and select I'm a new podcaster. Fill out the name of your show. The description is another thing that you wanna have written out already so that you can easily copy and paste. Okay, so I'm actually going to go back to my Drive folder, because right here I have added the description for the show. I'm going to go ahead and copy this text here, bring it back over to the description, and boom, we are set up. I'm going to show you the prices for Buzzsprout, because I'm sure you're wondering what that is after your free trial is over. One of the things that I love about Buzzsprout relative to Libsyn and some other platforms is how It's not based on megabytes and the storage and quota that you have available in your hosting plan. It's basically off time limits. You can always upgrade. It's pretty seamless to do that. Now, the Magic Mastering plan is basically this thing where you can add an intro, an outro, and your main file, and it mixes and blends it together. It auto normalizes the volume a little bit. And if you don't need a lot of heavy editing in your show, it can be something to consider. But as with all auto magic stuff, they have limitations. So you might face some issues there, but it is a pretty nifty tool that Buzzsprout has made available. I filled all this stuff out. I like to have a lot of this info in a document that is in the folder, because the show description is something you might pass along to other people who have you on their show. So it's just good to have that in a way that you can copy and paste. And then your podcast artwork. This is really important. And so I like to design it with Canva. It'll automatically select 3000 by 3000 pixels for you if you just type in podcast art. I'll make a separate video on that because I did screen record this process of me actually making the artwork, but I selected the file, and what I like is by default this will be used for every episode. If you decide you want to switch that up, you can always do that. Next is the category, and for us it is health and fitness. Time zone, you really want to make sure that this is somewhat accurate because you're publishing and scheduling using this time. For artists, this part's really important. Make sure your full name is in here, and if you have a co-host, make sure theirs is included as well. This is also going to allow people to search up your name in Spotify or in Apple or Google. Once all that is good to go, make sure to hit Save Podcast Info. Then you're going to go ahead and go to advanced. I always recommend keeping the episodic on instead of serial, because serial, even though our show is that way, it's season 1, episode 1, it goes to episode 10. We don't require like you have to consume it in order. That's the only time you might use the serial option, but know that it's very hard for you to change it and go back to episodic. It's easy on a lot of platforms like Spotify, but for Apple, it's such a pain and tough for the user experience to know when the latest episode is released, because it just shows you always from episode 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So keep it on episodic. It always will display the latest episode that you release first, which is advantageous. And then if you want, go ahead and fill out some of this information. I like to leave this default. You can add keywords if you want to. I might come back later and do that. The next thing I'll come back later and do is add hosts and co-hosts. This is another step that ensures when people search for you, and or if you have multiple podcasts, people can just click on your name with one tap in Apple Podcasts, for example, and all of the shows that you've done kind of pops up. So it's a pretty cool tool that is available. You don't have to use it, but it's a nice touch. Now that we've gone over this tab, let's go over to the episodes tab. I uploaded the first episode, which took a little while, and so while I was doing that, I also edited the show notes. I have a document where I have the show notes, the links, and quotes from the show that I like to copy over into Buzzsprout. I like this instead of sometimes a 2-sentence description of the episode, because it gives people a real preview into what we were talking about. The next thing I'm going to edit and add in here are going to be the links to all of my work and Blake's work. Remember, you've gotten people to actually listen to your stuff, click on it, and if they want more of you, make it super easy for them to click, get used to that. And so we're going to open up the podcast version right now because that's what we're doing. Everything is formatted well here, and I'm going to basically copy this whole thing all the way to connect with Blake. And then I'm going to bring it over into this description area. Now, you want to make sure with all of the links that they're actually hyperlinked and they lead to the right places, because you've put a lot of work in and you want that part to work. I'm going to go ahead and hit save and update episode. And then for now, we're leaving it unpublished. It's not live because I'm going to go back and I have to repeat this process for episodes 2 and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and hit upload new episode. All right. And I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to come back over here to my folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up the show notes. In my show notes document, I have the title that I worked on and had different iterations of. I've also put it through this word count tool, and I like to make sure that it counts under 50 characters because that's what's really good for YouTube. And with a thumbnail and the title, it doesn't get cut off. Same thing you want for podcasts. Like, you don't want all the important information to be at the end of your title. After on character 55, everything's going to get cut off. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it into the episode title. Next thing I'm going to do is come back into the show notes, paste the show notes, go ahead and add the quotes, add the links to it. Let me show you how I do that without opening up that document every single time. I go back to the latest episode because chances are everything from this part down is something that it's consistent, it's pulled from that document, it's customized. So I copy that, it's still hyperlinked, and I bring it over into this tab, paste it, and boom, I'm good to go. Let's make sure oh, no, I'm not good to go. I am over character limit, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete some things and deleted a couple quotes. We've got enough room now. All the links fit, so I'm going to go ahead and save the episode. Again, I'm going to go ahead and repeat this for episode 3 and not make you watch, and then I will check back in after. The other thing I wanted to highlight in your uploading episode process is this information below the episode artwork area. Should you fill this out or should you leave it empty? I've done both, and I find that leaving it empty is, for me, my preference because I like to keep it in the title here. And the problem I've noticed is if you have this in the title, S1E3 or episode 3, and then you also fill it out here, basically when it comes to Apple Podcast platform, it repeats it twice and it just doesn't look good. So I go ahead and avoid that. Next up, I'm going to hit see more options. This part's important because I just want to make sure that the artist and names again are there by default. If we had filled this out in the podcast info area, which we did, but sometimes if you don't do that and you upload first, it might not be there. So you want to make sure that this is updated. I leave everything else alone, and then I go ahead and hit save episode details. Now that's uploaded, I'm going to hit save details. And as you can see, all 3 episodes are now in Buzzsprout. So once this has happened, I actually have to publish the episodes starting with episode 1 first before I can move forward with submitting it to any directory, including Apple Podcasts. So what I'm going to do is start with my episode 1. I'm going to go ahead and just set it for Tuesday, 3 a.m. I like to have the episodes release at 3 a.m. for the recurring ones just because it's a time where people who commute really, really early to places like truck drivers and stuff, they are going to have your content fresh and ready to listen to. It's a time where people like to listen to podcasts. So when possible, I like to be there for that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit schedule. Once you've hit scheduled, you can always go back and just hit publish now, and it will go ahead and do that. So that is what I'm going to do for right now because this is a fresh show and I'm trying to get moving with the rest of the process. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and come to episode 2. Again, edit the time just to what you had it for the other thing. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit publish now. And then just so it's not too quick, I wait like a minute just to be safe. And then I go ahead and hit publish now. Then I go to episode 3, do the same thing, schedule, publish now. Now that all 3 episodes are actually published and live within Buzzsprout, you can now go into the directories area. And this basically lists all of the top directories that you're going to want to be on, everything from Apple Podcasts to Spotify, Stitcher, Google, you name it. All the new ones that come out sometimes will get listed in here. Then if your desired directory isn't in here, you can always take the RSS feed, go ahead and copy that, and that's what you'll need to basically submit your show to different places. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Spotify. Let's go ahead and hit get listed. I like that it gives you instructions in here as well. So I'm just going to hit submit, and it was pretty easy. Just submitted to Spotify already for me. I'm going to go ahead, and the reason I'm not clicking it all in order right now is because some of these you have some extra steps. So we're going to go ahead and hit Amazon Music. Okay, just agree. Perfect. We've submitted. Easy. We're going to go ahead and let's try TuneIn and Alexa. This one, you have to go to the site to do that, so I will do that later. Podcast Addict, great, nothing really, just one step, submit, and you're good. Podchaser, get listed, again, one step, that's beautiful. I'm going to try that for the rest of these. Pocket Casts, it's funny, you don't think some people listen to some of these directories, but I actually had somebody who's like, oh man, I saw you weren't on Pocket Casts. Like, that's what I use now, even though like I have the Apple Podcasts app and Spotify. So you never know. There's all of these directories that are doing a good job of making a great podcast listening experience. And it's not that hard for you to submit your show and just be present and take advantage of their distribution process. Let's now deal with the top 2 podcasts that are left here. Let's start with Apple Podcasts. This one can be a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to aim to make this as simple for you as possible. You're going to go ahead and hit get listed. Is your podcast already listed in Apple? No, in this case. So what I'm going to do is hit copy here. And then I'm going to go ahead and in step 3, launch the Apple Podcast Connect website. And just to give you a preview, this is what it's saying I should see. Well, let's go ahead and click it and see what happens. Okay, this is the portal that it pulls up. I'll have all of this linked up, by the way, in the show notes. So you're going to go ahead and enter your information. If you are dealing with issues when it comes to your Apple ID, because I did, and I actually talked to Apple tonight for quite a bit, the Apple ID process was really annoying for me tonight because I started from scratch and created a new one using a new Gmail. When you do that, you have to confirm the fact that you are a real person. So you have to have a phone number, right? And you have to have your email, confirm through both of those things. The next thing you have to do is actually add your payment information and try to download any app. I know it sounds weird, but that is how they authenticate that you're a real person. They don't actually charge you for anything. It's just keeping a payment method on file. And the next thing that downloading an app actually allows you to do is review their terms and conditions, which from Jonathan that I talked to today is really the main point of them doing all of this. So thankfully, I was able to do this on my phone. I'm going to make a separate video on that because this is a whole complicated issue. But I also inquired what it's like for non-iOS users. If you don't have one, but you still want to be on Apple Podcasts, how do you go about doing this? And the answer was to mainly set this up in your browser, appleid.apple.com. I've included this again in the description below, so make sure to check that out. And since you don't have an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook that you might be using to download an app and accept the terms and conditions, the method that you use is going to be a little bit different. On your Windows device, you're going to download the iTunes app because that is something you can download on like a Windows laptop or something like that. And so anytime you go ahead and do that, it's going to now ask you to review the terms and conditions, which is mainly what you need to do. And then adding your payment info and all of that good stuff can easily be done within the Apple ID portal. So once that is all good, you're going to basically sign in here. It's going to ask you to authenticate and verify. It looks like I have to use my phone right now. Okay, now that I have logged in to my Apple ID, this is what you should be seeing. If you see yourself in a position where it says activate your Apple ID, then you have to go ahead and complete the steps that I just mentioned. If you face any issues, check out some of the other links I placed in the description, and that should help you out. That's usually the really annoying part when you first set it up fresh, because you can't do anything until that's activated. Then once you see this, you are going to hit get started. You're basically going to agree to another set of terms and services and fill out some of this information here. So for setting up the account, I'm really just going to put the name of the show, agree to the terms and services, and hit save. This is exactly what you should be seeing, the ability to add a show. So I'm going to hit that. I'm going to select add a show with an RSS feed, hit next. And this is where you're going to go back to your Buzzsprout account. You're going to copy this RSS feed URL and you're going to paste it right here and then hit add. Okay, now that I've actually submitted all of my information, it's totally normal for you to see this. We're still processing your show, blah, 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 blah. You can refresh it from time to time to see if it's good. But one of the things I would do before doing that is hit step 4, I've submitted to Apple Podcasts. Once you've done this, it's basically going to do whatever it needs to do on Buzzsprouts. And when you get your new show link, eventually you want to come back here and update it. But you're good to go for now. You're now going to refresh just to check what's going on here. And boom, it took literally 1 to 2 minutes for this to pop up. This has all the information. You just want to verify that it all looks correct. I'm going to select the show does not contain third-party content. You want to go ahead and put your show information there. It doesn't have to be. If you want to choose a frequency, you can do that. This is the Apple Podcasts URL, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to bring that back over to Buzzsprout, paste, and hit save the URL. And as you can see in here, it is shown as listed. Once I hit save within here, I hit publish once again, and then boom, we're good. We can hit refresh if you really want to. But as you can see, the podcast artwork looks great. The artist info looks great. You have an actual show ID. You have an actual Apple Podcast URL. If there's a certain date you didn't want to make your show available until, then you could actually uncheck this and select a date. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mess with it. But once you're done there, you are good to go on Apple Podcasts. So I'm going to come back over to the directories section, and Google Podcasts is next. This is really important because Google is the largest search engine in the world. YouTube is number 2, but Google Podcasts is owned obviously by Google, and so they are going to make it advantageous in search. When people Google your name or the name of your show, Google Podcasts has the ability to show those episodes in a way that you could literally hit play from directly the Google search page. So I definitely recommend taking the time for you to set up yourself on Google Podcasts. Just hit get listed. You're going to copy the URL. You're going to go ahead to step 2, this link they provide. You're going to hit this link they provide in step 2. And then basically this is the page that's going to pop up, and then you are going to hit start now. And this is where you're going to add your Gmail account that you've created or your existing account, whichever one you want to be associated with your show. Once you've logged in, this is the page that you're going to see, and all you have to do is paste your RSS feed, hit next step, and it populates that information for you. As you can see, it looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and hit next steps. It's going to ask you to verify ownership, but basically because you use Buzzsprout, you don't really have to do much, which is the advantage of using them as your hosting provider. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. It's been submitted to Google's podcast index, so I am good to go there. The last one that is a good directory to get yourself on is Stitcher. Copy in step 2 the RSS feed, bring it over here, hit paste. Next, let it do its thing. Wonderful. And now you are going to hit next step. Just really enter your info here. And once you're done filling out your information, go ahead and hit sign up. You're going to agree to their terms. Head over to the partner portal. Okay. All right. Now we're going to come back to Buzzsprout. As you can see, step 3, it's just wait for Stitcher to approve. They're going to send you an email. Once they do, you can go ahead and submit that here, and you will be good to go. And that is how you submit to all of the audio directories that you want to. There's plenty more here that I'm going to take my time and go through. But when you launch, you really just want to make sure Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, and any one of these that appeal to you are good to go. So once all of this is done, all you have to do is just wait now. Depending on the platform, it can take a couple hours, couple minutes, usually no more than 24 hours. So if there is a time sensitive thing for your launch, you want to kind of plan ahead for that. The final step to launching a podcast, which you don't have to do because you might be doing audio only, but if you are doing video, then you want to create a YouTube channel where you can put your video files up as well. Doing this, I have already gone ahead and actually used my Gmail account that I created to create a new YouTube channel, and I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. As you can see, I am already logged in here to Trainer's Lab. I'm just going to make sure to tap into YouTube Studio. So for setting up your YouTube channel, you want to head over to studio.youtube.com or just youtube.com and make sure you're logged in. But then eventually you're going to go to YouTube Studio because that's where you customize all of this good stuff. The first thing that I am actually going to do now that I'm in here is come over to the settings section. In the settings is where you can set some of your upload defaults, which can be helpful. So I like to go into upload defaults, advanced settings, and just set my language to English, because if anybody wants to watch with subtitles, they can easily do so. So once you've adjusted this, you're going to go ahead and hit save. You're going to come back to settings, go to upload defaults. So for the description in the upload defaults, I'm going to come back to the Google Drive folder, and in my links folder I'm going to head over to the YouTube specific one. You can always customize and add things from there, but it's really nice to not have to do this over and over and over with this document. So I'm going to copy all the links here, and then I'm going to bring it over into my YouTube section here and basically hit save. You can add defaults for your tags and all that good stuff if you want to, but the next really important thing you're going to probably use is in the settings section. You're going to go over to permissions, and then you're going to invite at least maybe yourself, like another email you probably use often, so that you don't have to keep logging into this one, or your co-host or an editor or your assistant. This is how you do that. You hit invite, you basically enter their email, and then you select the level of access that you want them to have. Usually you're going to be selecting editor or manager, and then once you're done that, you can hit save and you are good to go. The next thing you're going to see that I designed that you might want to do in Canva is just a logo for your channel, which is the cover art, but shrink down to 800 by 800 pixels and centered a little bit so that you can see most of the content there. And then when you hit the channel, I actually did the same thing with the banner. I'll make another video on this because it's hard to get it to fit perfectly on desktop and mobile and all of that. But as you can see, I rearranged some things to make it fit in this area. Now the only thing left for me to do is just upload the 3 podcast episodes, and I have the video files here. So I'm going to grab 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do it all at once. Just drag and drop them into this area. It's going to take its sweet old time going ahead and uploading, but I'm going to let it do that. And then once it is uploaded, the very minimal part of it that I'm going to change is going to be the actual description. So I have the links that I've inserted in the description, but there are parts from Buzzsprout, which were the show notes and the quotes, which I can either copy it from here because this is the finished version. So it might be a little easier now than going back to your Google Doc. So I copy this. I would come over into the description for this thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste right above the default description. As you can see, as it was uploading, the description was already populated, which is pretty awesome. As you can see, with a new YouTube channel, it's asking you to complete a one-time verification to make external links clickable. The next thing I would do is add a playlist and categorize the videos. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is how to create chapters. You've probably seen in podcasts you watch on YouTube where you can very easily go through a 45-minute conversation and click on these little cards and it fast forwards it for you. It's super simple. This is the hack. All you have to do is make sure that the first timestamp that you have is set to 000. If you do that, then it's going to automatically add this as a chapter and then everything else following that. I'm going to update the titles, all of that good stuff. I'm going to hit next and then save it. There are some optimizations like adding thumbnails to this that I'll do with higher quality photos, but my main focus for launching a podcast is to get everything up on the audio directories, because that is the essence of podcasting. It's audio. And then after that, I focus on the video version, starting with kind of the bare minimum of what we can do, and then going ahead and trying to elevate our game by coming up with better clips and doing things to utilize video to our advantage to help grow the show. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for staying up with me. I hope you had a smooth experience setting up your podcast. If you have any trouble, make sure to drop me a comment. I love to hear from you. You can also email me, miz@podmahal.com. Check out some of the links in the description. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And my name is Ms. Bahak, and I'll see you next time.